Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show, highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community, and neighborhood. And now, from Four Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to Thanksgiving weekend. It's a special 4-day weekend celebration each year, and it definitely does mark off the beginning of our great holiday season in Moore County. Dorothy, for people who remember 2 weeks ago, we had the Taylor Dance studio on, and their performance of Nutcracker, their first performance was last evening. There's a matinee at 2 o'clock today. There is one on Sunday as well, over at the Owens Auditorium. And we had those 5 very impressive young ladies on.
Yes, they were impressive.
From 8th grade to 12th grade. And they are completely self-generating, passionate, and disciplined.
Yes.
And I do hope if people are looking for something to do, they will get out and see what these talented young ladies can do. Last week, we had a special show with the Carolina Philharmonic Junior Orchestra.
Yes, that was an energetic show.
Have you ever seen so many cute kids from ages 5
I know
through 8th grade?
Was it that old?
Oh, my God. The little 5-year-old, the microphone was as big as her.
Yes.
And she got up and she started playing. And, that was a program that came out of the fact, because of budget cuts in our school system, the arts program had suffered mightily. So,
which is unfortunate.
Yeah, but the gift of it is unfortunate. But the Carolina Philharmonic has sort of stepped in, and they're on a fundraising drive, as are so many other organizations in Moore County, with over 650 nonprofit groups here. It always seems like we're trying to get the word out for one cause or the other, all very good causes. Okay, so that's my introduction. So here's my backdrop.
Okay.
Back in the spring, we had a long conversation about the quarter-cent sales tax before the March elections.
Right.
Education has been one of the consistent themes that we have spoken about on the show.
Yeah, we've had a lot of kids in there here this year.
Yeah, a lot of kids and
a lot of school-related stuff. I can't keep track of it all, Bill.
So the 2016 elections are over.
Yeah, thank goodness.
We have a country where everyone has a very strong point of view about a lot of our institutions, right?
Right.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to...
It's passionate about everything. So,
right.
But on to this quarter-cent sales tax.
Well, it's not just that. It's education.
Yeah.
It's one of the consistent topics that we have spoken about. It's one of the things as a real estate broker. We are speaking with people who are moving into our area with the changing demographics. What's the first question they ask? Test scores?
Everybody wants to know about the school, especially if they have kids.
It's
important.
Well, the test scores are something that people who live in Montana who are coming to Moore County, what else are they going to go on?
Yeah.
To start.
Right.
We're going to have a conversation today about our educational system, and rather, in some ways, the myth of our educational system from kindergarten through 12th grade. Schools are one of the most important reasons why Moore County is growing, and why so many people are choosing to call Moore County home. And we have so many concerned parents. With the schools are swelling. And we have 3 very distinguished guests today who are going to be having a very interesting conversation. It might not be the most conventional conversation you've ever heard, but it's a conversation that probably needs to be had and needs to be heard, because we have parents who come in and they look at the public school system, and then they start to look at the private school system, and they're all trying to make the right choices for their children.
Yeah.
Tom Leach is a retired professor. He was a dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at UNC Pembroke. He has, I guess, 32 years of experience, Tom, in the educational system.
Yes, I taught there at UNC Pembroke for 32 years.
For 32 years.
I actually taught in English up at Chapel Hill while I was working on my doctorate as well, and had about 6 additional years of teaching before I came to Pembroke.
Okay. We are also going to be speaking with Betty Wells Brown, who has her PhD in reading education, 45 years in the field, and Betty Wells has just been recently elected to the Board of Education here in Moore County, and she is a retired professor at UNC Pembroke. Good morning, Betty Wells.
Good morning.
How are you?
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad. Do we have your mic up pretty well? I think we do. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Election Day is a recent memory.
Very.
I mean, just we're talking about 2 weeks. But we saw your signs, and I know you're, now that you're retired, you're in a position where I think you can now start to give back.
That's what I plan to do.
And oversee.
Yes. I've given so much time to my profession, and now that I'm retired, I want to be able to give back to the community and to the teachers and the students here in Moore County.
There's something about mentoring and coaching that is so essential. As we get older, we want to embrace the kids. I don't know if you know Betsy Robinson from Area Real Estate Partners. No. Well, she's one of the patrons of the Carolina Philharmonic, and it's something that's very dear to her heart, and she made a statement. It's all about the kids. The circle, keeps turning, and it's now the next generation's turn to come up, and it's our position or place to try to help and lead and guide them.
Yes.
So we welcome you.
And support them.
Completely support them. Also at the table is Cliff Sumrall, who I just found out is related to Pat Sumrall. And even though the spelling is different, you had me there when you told me that. I thought you were just pulling my leg.
No, I wasn't pulling your leg.
Well, your background is not so much in education per se as you were a business person.
Business as well as education. Pretty good balance between the two.
And you had a business called Success Dynamics?
Success Dynamics in San Diego and in Los Angeles. Very successful business.
What can you give me the Cliff Notes version of?
Well, the Cliff Notes version is I could say to people, I know what's successful, and I'm going to give you what's successful to your business. I'm going to help you make your business more successful. And I would sell it to them. As a matter of fact, my wife was my business manager. We didn't say it was my wife. I said, you want to contact the cost details. Talk with my wife. I talked with my business manager. Mm-hmm. That way we eliminated me negotiating. And we went from $17 an hour as a college professor to $250 an hour with Edison Company in Los Angeles. And they were apologizing because they couldn't pay more. I didn't say much. I just took the job, and away I went.
Well, the three of you, you all know each other. You all share some similar backgrounds.
Tom and I met in the pool.
Oh.
We swim together.
Oh.
And he gave me his background, and I was very much impressed with it. And I thought, wow, this would be a good guy to team up with for this program. Then Betty over here, she was giving her a little spiel about running for the board. And I listened to her very carefully, and I said, wait a minute. She doesn't sound like the average educator. She's interested in doing some new things.
Right.
Well, what we're talking about today, hopefully we'll get into it in detail, is something quite new. And that's what I saw in her, and we got together, and now we have a little family with the three of us here.
Well, the definition of a myth is a widely held but false belief, which we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely.
As it pertains to Moore County education or public education at large.
We're going to start, hopefully, with a worldview. What do our schools here in this country stack up for the worldview?
Uh-huh.
Then we'll go to the state view, and then we'll come down to the county view.
Okay.
So people can see the whole picture.
Okay.
And the problem statement, I probably should give that here now.
Please do.
The problem statement is the continued perpetration by the educational community of the myth that traditional educational practices are advancing successful educational needs. My partner will define all those terms so everybody will know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Tom?
So, Cliff has mentioned the educational community, and these are folks advancing programs like No Child Left Behind, Common Core, teachers' unions, and the Office of Education for the U.S. Traditional educational practices, big key there is rote as a successful method for learning.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we'll, I think, address here directly. The myth is a widely held belief that the rote and the practice of memorizing dates and events are preparing students for world competition, and that's the myth that we want to address.
Right. Isn't the country's view, our educational system, was based on an agricultural model?
Well, it does, because we're primarily agricultural, but we are graduating students that may or may not be on the farm today, or
Right.
maybe someplace else. We're looking at the world view of education, and this is from the Pearson Education Company. They're talking about ranking for the United States. We're 17th out of 40 nations. Well, wait a minute. We're the wealthiest country in the world, and we're 17th out of 40 nations. Our fourth grade math in the world is 11 out of 50. Our science is 23 out of 65. Our cognitive skills are 14th out of 39. It does not add up. You look at this country and you say this is the wealthiest country in the world, and a student graduating from one of our high schools may end up in Saudi Arabia someplace doing something totally out of the agricultural area, and he is not being well prepared.
That's been a consistent theme on the show, because the schools are trying to prepare our students for jobs that don't even exist yet.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that's an issue. So how do you prepare a student to think for themselves and to be flexible? That's where we have to get caught up. Is that the implication?
We have to move away from that, and we look at the top schools in the world. What are they doing different from us? Asian schools are outstripping us. We're 14th out of 40. Well, again, we're topping the wealthiest country in the world, and yet we're 14th out of 40, and we've got Asian schools beating us. Some of the things that Asian schools are doing that are different: number one, they don't start at 5 years of age. They don't start with preschool. They start at 7 years of age, and they have 16 students per class, not 32. And the teachers are trained to receive a master's in elementary education. I've advocated for many years it ought to be a doctorate, because the twigs are bent in elementary education. And when we bend a twig in elementary education, you get to the college level, we're working with a pretty bent individual. The last one on that is the teachers are paid to train for their masters by the government. We don't do that here.
No.
Budgets have been cut. One of the conversations in the political season, which just ended, was free college tuition. How many of these students are being taught to be prepared to go into the workforce, or how many students from high school are being taught to be really, truly prepared to go into college? Seems like there are a lot of questions in that regard. Tom?
There certainly are. We want to go into it. I mean, basically at this point, there are three things, I think. Number one, we have a graduation rate of 80% in U.S. schools. Half of those are unprepared in reading and math skills to enter college.
Right.
That's the initial stumbling block that we're looking at. They're not ready to matriculate to college, to move on and go without remedial work. They've got to go back and do non-credit work in reading and math in order to prepare to enter college.
Mm-hmm. Betty, one of the challenges that the Board of Education is going to have, money.
Oh, yes.
I mean, teacher pay, money.
Mm-hmm.
How can, what Cliff said, perfect world is great, but we can't afford to make these drastic changes right now.
The changes are not that drastic that can be made. Teachers are, if they were allowed to be professionals and use the skills that they've learned, a lot more learning would be going on.
Mm-hmm.
Good teachers have always taught critical thinking, reasoning, reading,
Mm-hmm.
math, science, social studies, and incorporated those within the content area as well as outside the content area. And so Moore County is looking, at least the 3 or 4 years that I've been working in the schools here, I'm seeing more and more of that occur with the school-based administration. They're still following the Common Core and the areas that are vital for meeting the standards that the state and the federal government wants us to meet. But they're giving the teachers flexibility to be the professionals that they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been very rewarding to see that happen because, and what we're seeing is that our test scores are going up.
Mm-hmm.
They're not teaching to the test.
Mm-hmm.
They are teaching students how to reason, how to use the vocabulary, and how to apply it.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, then what I'm seeing is a new wave coming through of again, professionals who are getting out there, stretching themselves, stretching their students. We've got technology Olympiads that have been going on in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
They're incorporating music and art and physical education within the schools
Mm-hmm.
to get the content area going so that the gifts of each student are found and then valued, and the students are taught how to grow with this.
We're going to come back in the second set, and we're going to continue this conversation about the myth of education in our education system from kindergarten through 12th. Betty, as you were talking, all I was thinking about was teacher morale. I want to open up in the second set about that. We'll be right back. This is All Things Moore County.
Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our house.
Welcome back to All Things Moore County. Our conversation today is about the myth of education in our education system from kindergarten through 12th. Very, very hot topic and has been for a couple of years now, and it seems to be picking up a lot more steam. Betty Wells Brown, who was just elected to the Board of Education, was finishing up the first set. And Betty, when I was listening to you, from a layman's point of view, as I am, I was thinking about, yes, you want to encourage the independence of the students and give them independent thinking means, but I kept thinking about teacher morale. And I read things like North Carolina teachers are some of the lowest paid in the country. People are being recruited out of state, and in order to encourage the young students, we have to encourage the teachers that are teaching them.
Yes. The morale across the board to me in the state, from talking to a number of other professors in education as well as other teachers, has been in 2010, I think it was, the legislature moved in 2010, 2012, and did away with the master's pay for additional pay for as a step up.
Right.
And our program at UNC Pembroke went from 125 students to 25 students in a matter of a couple of years because teachers are not getting paid for professional development like that.
Right.
And so you can't do as much with just an undergraduate degree. And so teachers want to know more. And so we have teachers that are coming back that are seeing this, but it makes for some hardship for a lot of them when they don't get any supplemental salary for that.
Right.
And then, of course, the state has talked about getting $50,000 a year for teachers. Well, I'm sorry, but I've talked to a number of teachers, and I have yet to find anybody that's making that $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
So now the good news is that since Dr. Grimacy has been in Moore County, the morale of teachers here has gone from the 40s and 50% to the 60s and 70%. And he's wanting to move forward with getting that morale, looking at job descriptions, the paperwork that teachers are required to do, trying to take some of that away, looking at the supplements that we're trying to do with teachers. Moore County gives an 8% supplement, which is a good supplement around here, but not as good as Chapel Hill or Orange County, which gives between 12 and 25%.
Right. My sister-in-law is a tenured teacher in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Her salary is six figures.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. But she's had some of the students come to her wedding. I mean, generations now. She's been in the teaching for 35 or 40 years, but the pay scale is not what North Carolina is known for, unfortunately. But
it was at one time.
Was it?
It was 15 years ago when I first came back to North Carolina. It was one of the top 20% of the United States. We've gone now to 47.
It sounds like, Cliff, that the Moore County is trying their very hardest to tweak an existing foundation to make it more applicable to today's students. But you're not talking about tweaking. You're talking about changing the foundation.
No, I'm really talking about tweaking. People ask me, we'll end up with a program here that we think should be put into our schools.
Right.
But we have to realize are we on the same page?
Right.
There are people in education today, according to Bloom, that knowledge acquisition comes first. If that's my modus operandi, that's my base, I'm all thinking that way, then the natural transition from that to teaching becomes rote in the classroom. And rote in the classroom ranks the state of North Carolina 19th in the nation. That's not really exciting. And morale can be based on that very figure. I'm looking at your schools and you're number 19th in the nation. And I look at Singapore and I say Singapore has shifted away from traditional education.
Mm-hmm.
They don't use rote at all because the results are not there. And we're going to get to those results right now.
Okay.
The results for the top schools here in this Moore County, Union Pines, Pinecrest, and North Moore, their readiness for college education, well, the graduation rate for Union Pines is 95%, but the readiness for college is 25.1%. Well, wait a minute. If I have a graduation rate of 95%, and a college readiness of 25%, that means 75% of the people in that school didn't get enough to go on to college without remedial work. Something's not working. It's our theory here that we're perpetrating the myth that something is working.
Uh-huh.
But when you look at schools, you see that we're hung up with knowledge comes first, and the rest of the Asian community talk about smartness is at birth, is what we say in this country. We believe that. You have a certain gene set up and you're smart because of birth situation. The Asians push that aside. And they said smartness can be taught. Well, wait, that's totally different than what we're doing here. Yet they're outstripping us all over the place in terms of education. And the craziest thing of all, and you just mentioned it, Betty, money. Money is not a major concern for Asian schools. How you teach and the axiomatic underpinnings that you have for your purpose in teaching, smartness can be taught, is foreign to our schools here. You come with smartness. What's your gene situation? And that's crazy.
Betty?
Pinecrest is at 91% graduation, 34% college readiness. North Moore is 95% graduation rate, 25% college rate.
Where are you getting these figures?
I'm getting the rate from our local school board information for college readiness right off the computer.
Because what I saw was more like, I mean, students are being accepted into the college.
Right.
A lot of them, you know, Pinecrest has close to 60 or 70% of their students accepted into colleges.
Mm-hmm. Well, being accepted and being successful are two very different things. The rate, according to our statistics that we have here from a national organization based in Europe, are saying that the graduation rate for people that enter college in the United States is 50%.
But is college for everybody?
Oh,
I mean, that's one of the reasons we're looking at the academic center and building that for our students to be able to move into other areas, vocational as well as the academic.
Well, is college ready for everybody? And the answer is absolutely not. I taught 35 years in college, and I would say there's a lot of people in this class that shouldn't be here, but I don't tell them that. I do know this. You graduate from high school today, get married, and have 2 kids. Financially, you cannot exist in this society. You can't make enough money with that educational background. So college has a necessity. Let's go to community college. Now, with 2 years of community college, your income improves drastically. 4 years of college, whether you majored in butterflying or whatever, is almost irrelevant. But you did graduate from college, and that says you're a better person than the kid that graduated from high school. May or may not be true.
Well, and Moore County is getting ready to offer any students in Hope County and Moore County for the community college, if they graduate from a high school there, they will be eligible for free community college tuition.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In 2017, and I'm going to do a little bragging on UNC Pembroke, Pembroke, Western Carolina, and Elizabeth City State will go to $500 a semester for tuition. Not counting room and board, but $500 a semester. So students feasibly can go for $1,000 a year.
Right.
So they will come out with little to no debt.
Perfect.
Yes, indeed.
And so those types of innovations are happening here in our community.
What you're saying is you're catching up. California's been doing that for 30 years.
But they've gone back because they couldn't afford it.
Well, they are having minimal fees to go to college, $10 a unit or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very, very cheap to go to community college. My community college, in which I taught, we had 30,000 students. This community college here doesn't have the population, of course, but what have you, 2,000 students? I looked at the curriculum at this college compared to California schools.
At Sandhills?
Yeah.
Oh, I think they have a lot more than 2,000.
Well, I don't know. I just heard that was a figure about 2,000 students. Beautiful school, does some great things, but far as academically concerned with curriculum, they're a little bit behind California, but that doesn't mean anything. It simply means we need to get those kids into those schools from high school. Well, we don't need to call them preparatory schools. We need to call them advancement schools so a student can learn a career or he can learn a trade, as well as prepare himself to go on to college. That's exactly what I did. I ended up in law school as a result of going to community college. Never thought I had a prayer of even going to college until I got into community college.
But we grew up in a different time.
Oh, didn't we?
When we grew up,
we
grew up, we would settle in a community. We would start a career, and I won't say it was cradle to grave, but today, families will move on a dime for a job.
Absolutely.
Our economy is completely different than what our generation, and so things are not as permanent. The United States is not the same economic force that it was.
Oh, no.
We're not self-contained. It's a global economy we live in, and we're going to come back in the third set, but isn't the role of education to teach transferable skills.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and that's where the
right.
Common Core has been good
Right.
for a lot of students that are coming in from the military or moving with parents now. That move so frequently because they all have standards that they live by.
Right. And the skills that we're talking about trying to teach them are for jobs that have not even been created yet, that in 5 or 10 years there will be jobs out there that we don't even know what they're going to be.
No.
Tough stuff. We're going to come right back. This is-
And I would just add there that in that regard that the U.S. literacy ranks 7th in the world.
Yeah.
And that's a bad
I've
situation.
I've
for
stopped
us.
watching TV the last couple of weeks. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back.
In the middle of our street, our house. In the middle of our house, it has a crack.
Welcome back to our final set today, talking about the educational system, and we're not really on a worldview right now. We're getting a little more local about Moore County. We all want the school system here to be the very best it can be. We want to cater to the young families that are starting to populate Moore County. Betty, the demographics here have changed drastically
Yes.
in the last 15 years.
Yes.
And the schools are overcrowded, and there's so much talk about expanding the school system, but wanting to make the school experience more applicable to today's students versus the traditional educations that we might have all had.
Yes.
It's an organic challenge. It can't happen overnight.
It won't happen overnight. It takes time and money and working together as a community for people who have children in school, people who don't have children in school, people who had children in school, everybody, community businesses, all of these people have to work together to get this camaraderie, the goals met,
Yeah.
and to get our children educated.
I made a comment in the second set that our world has changed because today people would move on a dime for a job. Well, there's another change that we haven't talked about, and that is the nuclear family. And it's not what it was
No.
30, 40 years ago. There are more kids from single-parent families. It's not as traditional as we'd all like, and we talked a little bit, when a kid goes into middle school, those are very formative years.
Mm-hmm.
If that kid is not well adjusted, it starts at home. And if that kid comes into that environment and is not well adjusted, if there are some negative influences, that kid could get sucked up into them. If the child is well adjusted, they'll learn to grow and handle it. And by the time they're out of 8th grade, their good self-esteem will sit with them well. We're fighting that too, the social network fabric.
and getting the parents to still be involved in middle school
Right.
with their children. They'll come to sporting
Don't just
events.
take them, please, and get them
Right.
off my back.
That's right. They come to sporting events. They will come to orchestra, band concerts, music concerts, things like that. But teachers need the parents to be there at other times too, because middle schoolers, and I taught middle schoolers for several years, have ups and downs and ins and outs, and today's world is even more different than what I had when I taught 25 years ago, the middle schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
So the parents don't, a lot of times I hear teachers in the middle school areas here talk about not getting the parents to the conferences when they need to have them there, or not being able to see them when they'd like to see them. And not just because the student has done something negatively, but for positive situations also. They just want to put a name with a face oftentimes. And the children, the students, the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders say, oh, no, you don't have to go, because they don't want them to go.
Right.
But parents need to be parents and take hold of this
Right.
and be the parent and show up.
Is it true, though, that some of the parents, are holding down 2 jobs?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Some
Yes.
of the, again, they're not as structured and in place as they might have been 30 or 40 years
Right.
ago, and there are other, there could be many blended families.
Yes.
There's a lot of dysfunction out there. And, oh, by the way, I have a child in middle school. Good luck. Those are the really tough years, isn't it? Get you ready for high school.
They are.
It's really hard.
Yeah, a lot of challenges, but
I think one
Cliff?
of the difficult things in looking at our schools and getting the parents to come to the schools is pride. The teacher doesn't have a lot of pride when you're 18th out of 100 counties in this state. You're saying, or this, 18th. You're saying there's not a lot of pride there. You're an average bunch of people. We don't get excited about an average football team. If the football team is winning, we sell tickets, and we have a lot of pride, and we'll break our neck to go there. And when you're looking at a school that's doing a reasonable, average job, going to a meeting there or any of that kind of thing, it's not exciting because there is no pride in that. And the same thing for teachers. We keep talking about salaries. People go into education not because of salaries. They go into education because they care about other people. They want to do things for young people. That was my background. But one of the most important things that came to me by accident in my last 3 semesters of teaching. And it was a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. You're looking at an educational institution, a school board, or a family, or a business, or whatever. If you start looking at it that way, you start saying, okay, what's he talking about? He's saying the things you did that got you to this particular position are not going to take you to another.
Right.
And he's a professor. Goldsmith is his name. And he said to his classes on the graduate level, I'm not your professor. I'm not the God guy with a PhD and all that sort of stuff. I am your mentor.
right.
And I did that to my last 3 classes. And the students looked at me like I'd been on a sauce or something. What's this guy saying?
Yeah.
I said, I am your mentor. You want an A? I'll show you how to get it. I will meet with you whenever you want. We'll talk one-on-one on how you get an A. And I did it with a kid that everybody said was stupid. His parents said he was stupid. But he was a weightlifter, and I looked at him and I said, you cannot be a weightlifter and develop a body like that and be stupid. You just believe you're stupid. I'm going to prove to you you're not. I taught him his final examination, word for word practically. And he got up with his suit and tie and gave his speech. And I'm almost ready to cry right now as I think about it, because this kid gave his speech. It was absolutely perfect, and he got his first A. I thought he was going to walk out of the room 2 feet off the ground.
I wish we could clone that experience for the many teachers here who have oversized classrooms where
Yes.
they could go in and do that one-on-one, but that's not the reality, is it, Betty?
Unfortunately not.
Yeah.
And in next year, 2017,
Yeah.
the state has said we will lower the class sizes for kindergarten through 2nd grade, through 3rd grade, excuse me. And so 4th and 5th grade are going to be oversized because we don't have the teachers to move down there or to get, we're going to need, Moore County's going to need close to 30 plus new teachers.
How do we recruit?
That's something I'd really like people to let us know, because I like to think we can kind of do a homegrown where we get students that are interested in education in the middle school and high school, then send them off to colleges to work on education, and then have them come back. Once upon a time, there was a program called Teaching Fellows here in the state of North Carolina, and that recruited a large number of teachers for the state. Moore County had a number of those that went into Teaching Fellows and then came back and taught. because they pay back. The state is looking at a new program where, because a lot of our students are coming through high school with 2 years of college, too. They do the 2+2. And so if we can, the state is looking at instituting a new program. They haven't funded it yet, so that's going to be the big question, is how they're going to fund it.
Yeah.
But where students could go in as a sophomore, junior level and indicate that they want to be in teaching and get this type of scholarship that can help promote that.
There's no more important role in our in Moore County than a good teacher.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I remember my teachers through public schools, very good public schools. Those they are as alive today in my head as when I was in 5th grade, 8th grade, 10th grade. People who, they cared, they taught you hard lessons. It was tough love, and it was consistent. And I look back, and I'll never forget that. I don't know that, and it's a noble goal to reach. And I can just tell, Betty, by the way you speak, you feel exactly the same way I do. Somehow we have to roll it back a little bit and again, get more organic.
Well, it just seems to me that whole issue there is one that really is at the crux of the matter. It's how do we get belief in education, how do we get that faith back that these folks really do, the students matter, the teachers matter, the program matters, and we can turn that around. How do we do that? We've got to have the funding, for one thing, in order to reduce the class sizes.
You certainly have a very passionate parent base in Moore County.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Highly proactive.
Very.
And I know many of them, and very, very caring. And they want the very best for their children.
Right.
And those are the parents that are willing to step forward and to be out there and to reach out. Not always enough, but they're there.
Well, one of the situations, too, that we're encountering is even 20 years ago, there were limited jobs available to young people after they graduated from high school and or college.
Especially locally.
Yes. Now there are more jobs available. So people can make choices. And again, they're not choosing education because the funding's not there. The class sizes are so large that you wonder how people can move in the classroom some days. But the good news is that teachers who care are still doing the best job they can do, and some of them are doing better jobs than others. And as a result have been that our students are benefiting from that.
Well, a couple of things come to my mind when we talk about class size. I think of the university level with 300 students in the classroom. How do they function in that classroom? The basic difference between the students in the university are there because they want to be there and they're excited about it, and 300 students doesn't bother them. When you're in a classroom in the first grade and you've got 32 students, you have to be there, and something is not happening. Einstein told us what should be happening. He said, as a teacher, I do not teach. I create an environment in the classroom that is an educational environment. Teachers need to understand that an educational environment is different than telling Johnny what to do through a rote system. And I have a solution to the problem that we have in our educational system, and I've been working on it for the last 5 years because I've seen it work in elementary schools in California, and I've seen it work where I've been teaching for some time. And before this meeting is over, I'll bring that solution to the table, and you can discuss the merits of it and see whether or not something like that would actually do something different in our schools, in the same way that as a professor, when you say to a student, I am your mentor, they look at you like you're crazy. And when Dr. Goldsmith did that to his class, and handed them the final examination, his fellow colleagues went crazy. Did he do that? He said, that's where we're going. Why shouldn't they know where we're going?
But most teachers are facilitators.
Well,
They-
I'd like to
they-
think that, but I'm not sure.
Most of them are. I won't say 100% because you still have some that go back to the way they were taught of the lecture response method. But a large majority of our teachers are more facilitators, setting up learning environments within their classrooms so that the students can gather the information. And now with the technology that's available, they can pull other information off the internet. Again, teachers are cautious about which websites they use and how they use certain websites. But as a facilitator, then the students can get up and talk about it, can share with each other. They develop the social skills, even though technology does produce some lack of social skills sometimes. But they're getting that momentum going. And what we're working on right now is to get those students to focus and to realize that these are important pieces that they need to learn. And teachers do still lecture some to get some concepts and skills across, but then they produce areas for facilitation.
I think what we have to do with the student, we talk about the student, we have to move the student from a regurgitative mind, i.e. I do everything from memory, to an inquiring mind. What happens when your kid is 2.5, 3 years old? He has an inquiring mind. Why is the sky blue, Daddy? And you find yourself, I've got 4 sons and 2 daughters, going crazy answering all of their questions. When they get into school and start the rote system, that kind of dies. We say in education, from my point of view, we blow the lights out about 3rd grade. And then from then on, it's rote, and rote begets boredom. But an inquiring mind in the 4th grade will push the teacher against the wall in the sense he's asking intelligent questions. And we can't develop that from a rote system.
No. And what the K2 literacy assessment that North Carolina uses to look at the reading capabilities and their different levels does a lot of that. And I have to tell a story that one of my 2nd grade teachers shared with me, where the student had read the information. She was reading the comprehension questions to the student. The student was doing well. And then she said, and why, again, doing some critical thinking, why do you think the author wrote this story?
Perfect.
And the student said, to make money.
There you go. What do we say about Shakespeare? He wrote to make a buck.
And so, I mean, but that was creative. That was using critical thinking skills. So we are looking at those areas, and they are being checked and giving checks and balances for our students and our teachers. So it's happening. We're getting away from a lot of that rote memorization. With the exception of maybe the multiplication tables.
I have a quick question, and time is winding down, but does it make a difference that when I grew up as a kid, I had 2 spheres of influence, my parents and teachers. Today, the kids have 600 channels of television. They have cell phones at an early age. There's not as much eyeball-to-eyeball contact. It's done electronically as the kids get older. Well, I maintain that a kid can't increase his self-esteem if he's doing it electronically as much as he could eyeball to eyeball. It's just a different environment that the kids are learning in today, too, and that the teachers are teaching into.
Yes.
Well,
Right.
Excuse me.
She agrees with everything I like her. She and I, we're
That's
on
why
point.
that's why she's here.
I like
agree
her.
with her too.
Yeah.
Well, let me do this. I want to throw this in before we run out of time, because
Okay.
I've been working on it for a number of years. You said eyeball to eyeball. You're talking about creative thinking. I'm talking about inquiring minds.
Okay.
And I'm saying, how do we develop that? De Bono is an author of 85 books on thinking, and he said to a group of teachers in New York City a number of years ago, you don't think. And they just nearly drove him out of the building because he said something like that. But what he was saying is that we don't teach thinking in
Right.
our schools.
Right.
We think that asking a question teaches the child how to think. And that's a myth, because he doesn't learn to think when you do that. He searches his memory from regurgitative thinking to say something that pleases the teacher. There's nothing creative in that at all.
Right.
My program says, look, let's do it differently. Let's take the curriculum that Betty is teaching in her classroom, and let's tell my student in the back of the room, you're going to go to the board. In front of the room, there are 3 questions that the teacher has put on the board. You're going to go up there and you're going to introduce yourself. You're going to take 2 parts of that question, talk about each part, summarize what you have done, and conclude it. You're going to do 5 steps. He's taught the 5 steps, very simple organization. Before he does that, how much time does he have to prepare? 3 seconds. What does it force him to do? Think. Wow, what an idea. When he's up in front of the room, there's 2 things he doesn't want to happen. He doesn't want to make a fool of himself, so he uses his little brain to think of things to say about something he's been taught for the last 6 weeks, and he delivers his presentation. The greatest fear we have in this country is public address.
Yeah.
When you master it in the 4th grade, what's it going to be like if you continue to do that to the 12th grade? My dean told me if those kids in the 12th grade came to this community college, it would be frightening.
Time is unfortunately short, but the start of a conversation like this is as important as implementing any changes. Just so people talk and share information about education,
Yes.
Absolutely.
that is a huge start. So, Cliff, for that reason, I want to thank you for contacting me and setting up this conversation, of which there should be many more. Tom Latch, I also want to thank you for coming in and lending your expertise and your perspective. And this lady on my left, Betty Wells Brown, I just agree with about everything you said, and I just kept nodding yes, yes, yes. The Board of Education, of which you'll be serving on, can use this show as a forum.
Thank you.
If you ever need a chance to get out and communicate, or even to involve some of the parents, because conversation is all we can do to start.
Absolutely.
And perhaps we can revisit this again in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was
Thank
a
you,
pleasure to all 3 of you for coming and talking, and glad it was Thanksgiving week. People are hopefully home listening with their families, and schools, one of the most important topics on everyone's mind.
Amen.
Amen.
And it should be.
And
Yes,
it should
indeed.
be.
It should
And
indeed.
I'm going to clone her. Can I do that?
Yeah.
Cloning is good. Okay, everybody, have a great week. This is All Things Moore County. Thank you.